When Claire Jensen stumbled upon the remains of an abandoned correctional facility, she expected rust, ruin, and regret, not a row of armored vehicles gleaming beneath decades of dust. Each one told a story of secrecy, power, and silence. But as she pried open the hangar doors and the sunlight spilled across the strange machines, she realized this discovery wasn't just valuable, it was dangerous. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and if stories of hidden discoveries, mechanical mysteries, and second chances inspire you, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode uncovers a secret even deeper than this one. Let's get started. The wind carried the scent of old iron and wild grass through the cracked asphalt as Claire Jensen stepped out of her pickup truck. The late afternoon sun hung low, painting the sky in bruised shades of orange and violet. Before her, half swallowed by creeping ivy and decades of silence, stood the remains of Millhaven Correctional Facility, a forgotten prison on the outskirts of town. Most people avoided this place. They said it was haunted, cursed, that strange lights were seen there after dark. For Claire, it wasn't ghosts. She was after it was scrap. Rusted copper, old engines, industrial hinges, anything she could weld, repurpose, or sell. She'd made a living scavenging the forgotten and turning it into something useful again. She adjusted her gloves and grabbed her crowbar from the truck bed. The facility's front gates loomed ahead, thick metal, chained shut, the lock fused with corrosion. She could almost hear her father's voice in her head, teasing, "You always pick the places with stories, don't you, kiddo?" He'd taught her everything she knew about machines, how every piece of metal, no matter how damaged, still remembered its purpose. It was her way of staying close to him, even years after he was gone. Claire wedged the crowbar into the chain and heaved. The metal groaned like something alive. With one final yank, the chain snapped, echoing across the empty yard. Dust billowed up, catching the light like smoke. Inside the gates, the ground was fractured with weeds. Old guard towers leaned like drunks after a long night. The main building's roof had collapsed, and yet, something about the far end of the property caught her attention. A massive concrete structure, partially hidden behind a line of overgrown trees. It didn't look like a cell block or a cafeteria. It looked industrial, functional. She walked toward it, her boots crunching over gravel. Birds scattered from the broken windows above. The structure's wide steel doors were sealed tight, streaked with rust but surprisingly intact. A faded stencil read, "Vehicle Bay Authorized Personnel Only." Her pulse kicked up. She ran her fingers over the letters. The metal was cold, untouched by sunlight. Whoever built this place wanted it closed, not forgotten. Claire crouched down, examining the hinges. The bolts were military grade, the kind you'd find on secure transport hangars. It didn't make sense what kind of prison needed armored vehicle bays. A shiver of curiosity replaced her caution. She took a step back, squinted at the door, and whispered to herself, "What the hell were they hiding in here?" The wind shifted, carrying the faint rattle of loose metal deep within the hangar. For the first time, Claire felt the sense that she wasn't just trespassing on old ground, but stepping into something that had been deliberately buried. She wiped her palms on her jeans, squared her shoulders, and reached for the crowbar again. Whatever was behind those doors, it had been waiting a long time to be found. The metal doors resisted her at first, as though the years themselves were holding them shut. Claire wedged the crowbar deep between the seams, leaned her full weight, and grunted. Rust cracked, dust cascaded down like brown snow. Then, with a low, hollow sigh, the hinges gave way. A breath of ancient air rolled out from the darkness, thick with the scent of oil, mildew, and thyme. Claire stepped back, coughing, wiping her arm across her face. Sunlight sliced through the widening gap, illuminating swirls of dust that shimmered like smoke in a beam of gold. She waited for the dust to settle before ducking inside. Her boots echoed faintly. The air was cool, heavier somehow, like stepping into the lungs of a sleeping giant. The beam of her flashlight cut through the gloom, sweeping across forgotten tools, empty crates, and peeling safety posters that read, "Secure. Seal. Report." The place wasn't empty. Something massive loomed in the far end of the bay silhouettes, tall and sharp-edged, arranged in a perfect line. Claire's light caught on them just enough to reveal outlines. Broad chassis, angular armor plating, wheels thick with dried mud. Her heart kicked up a notch. She took a few cautious steps closer, her light trembling just slightly in her hand. 5 of them. 5 enormous vehicles, their surfaces coated in grime but otherwise untouched by decay. The dust around their tires was undisturbed. Not even rodent tracks crossed the floor. It felt impossible, as if time had stopped here. She reached the first one, tracing her gloved hand along the side. The metal beneath the dirt was smooth, cold, and painted in a matte, deep gray military, but not any design she'd seen before. Each had a symbol embossed near the front, S9 Sentinel. Claire crouched and peered underneath. Reinforced suspension, armored panels, no signs of damage. These weren't junkyard relics. They were advanced, too advanced, for something hidden in an old prison. She circled to the rear and noticed a thin blue line along the tail light. Faint, but unmistakably LED. That meant power, electronics. A system not from decades ago, but something recent, experimental. "What are you?" she murmured. She found a maintenance hatch on the nearest vehicle and tugged it open. The interior was pristine, no dust, no corrosion. Inside sat a small black control module with a blinking green light. Her breath caught. Someone had been here, recently. She froze, listening. The silence pressed in on her, dense and unnatural. Then, faintly, something shifted behind her, a soft clink of metal falling. She spun around, flashlight darting across the floor. Nothing. Just the empty expanse of the bay and the rows of sleeping machines. But the feeling lingered, that prickling at the back of her neck. Claire stepped backward, her eyes never leaving the shadows. The vehicles stood still, silent guardians of a secret too heavy for the air. As the last rays of daylight slipped through the open door, she whispered under her breath, "I think I just found something I wasn't supposed to." By morning, the fog had rolled in from the hills, wrapping the prison yard in a pale, ghostly veil. Claire sat on the hood of her truck, sipping burnt coffee and staring at the hangar door she'd pried open the night before. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those 5 shapes standing in the dark. Silent, symmetrical, and wrong. Curiosity gnawed at her like rust on steel. She told herself she'd just take another look, document the vehicles, maybe contact someone at the county salvage office. But deep down, she knew she wasn't calling anyone. Not yet. Not until she understood what she'd found. Inside, the air was still cool and heavy. The light spilling through the doorway illuminated the lineup, clearly now 5 armored transport vehicles, each the size of a delivery truck but built like tanks. Their angular designs reminded her of concept sketches she'd seen in defense magazines. Futuristic, modular, built for both speed and defense. Claire walked slowly down the line, running her hand across each one. The paint was unmarked, tires inflated, windows tinted black. Every detail whispered precision, power, secrecy, and every license plate space was blank. She climbed up onto the first one, gripped the handle, and pulled. The door hissed open with hydraulic resistance. Inside, the cabin was immaculate, clean leather seats, touch-screen panels, digital dash displays. She tapped the center console. No response, but the screens weren't cracked or faded. These machines hadn't been abandoned decades ago. They'd been stored, protected. Her flashlight caught something on the passenger seat, a laminated tag with faded print. Property of Sentinel Defense Systems. Prototype Unit 4/5. Confidential, Claire frowned. Sentinel Defense. The name stirred something faint in her memory, an article she'd read years back about a private defense contractor rumored to have government ties. They'd gone quiet after a scandal involving missing funds and unregistered weapons. No one ever said what became of them. She snapped a few photos with her phone, trying to steady her hands. The vehicles gleamed under her light like sleeping titans. A part of her felt exhilarated. This could be the discovery of a lifetime, and another part felt sick with unease. If these were military prototypes, worth millions, then someone had gone to a lot of trouble to hide them. Claire's flashlight flickered, and she thumped it against her palm. When the beam returned, something on the floor caught her eye, faint tracks in the dust. Not hers, boot prints. Fresh. She froze. Every instinct screamed for her to back out, but her body didn't move. Slowly, she followed the prints toward the far wall, where a row of tool cabinets stood slightly ajar. One door hung crooked, the hinges bent. She pulled it open empty. Just a faint smell of oil and something else. Sulfur? The sound came again, the soft metallic click she'd heard last night. This time, closer. Claire turned toward the door, heart pounding. Outside, the fog had thickened, swallowing the sunlight. She wasn't alone in Millhaven anymore. Claire's pulse thudded in her ears as she backed toward the open bay door. The fog outside had thickened into a milky haze, blurring the yard into a pale ocean. She waited, listening for footsteps, for voices, for anything that would tell her what else was moving inside this place. But there was nothing. Just the soft hum of wind passing through the broken rafters. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. "You're jumpy," she whispered half to herself. "Just wind, just old metal." But even as she said it, her gut disagreed. Something in this hangar was still active, alive, in a way machines shouldn't be. Determined to get answers, she climbed back into the first vehicle. The air inside was faintly warm, like something had been powered recently. She brushed away a layer of dust from the dashboard and noticed a small, recessed panel under the steering column. It had a key slot, old-school style, but the words above it made her skin prickle. Authorized Access Project Sentinel. Her flashlight beam darted to the glove compartment. She tugged it open, and a metal folder slid out, its corners smeared with grease. Inside were laminated blueprints, notes, and photographs. Each page bore the same logo, a triangular insignia, with the letters SDS stamped beneath. Claire flipped through the documents with trembling fingers. Project Sentinel. Guardian Vehicle Initiative. Prototype 1 to 5. Below it, confidential testing authorized under Millhaven Secure Facility. Classified Level 4 clearance required. She frowned. The papers detailed everything from schematics to logistics routes. The vehicles were designed to be autonomous tactical transports, capable of full operation without drivers, powered by advanced AI navigation systems and encrypted satellite links. The next note made her breath catch. Program suspended indefinitely following Incident 7. A. All units sealed for reassessment. Incident 7A. There were no details, only a blacked-out paragraph and a red stamp. Classified. Claire rubbed her forehead, exhaling slowly. What the hell were you people doing here? A soft electronic chirp made her freeze. It came from the dashboard. One of the digital panels flickered faintly just for a second, then died again. She stared, her breath fogging the glass. The system had residual charge. That meant, somewhere in this building, a power source still existed. She climbed down from the vehicle, following a tangle of thick cables snaking along the floor toward the back of the hangar. They led to a locked maintenance room labeled Control Bay. The padlock was old but sturdy. Claire pried it off with the crowbar, kicked the door open, and stepped inside. Rows of old servers hummed softly in the dark, lights blinking like the slow pulse of something asleep. Dust floated through the air like snow. At the far end, a control terminal flickered weakly, its screen cracked but still alive. Across it flashed a message. System standby security network suspended. Override required. User T. Rhodes. Claire stared at the name. Whoever T. Rhodes was, they had access, and they hadn't deactivated everything. Behind her, something metallic shifted a sound that didn't belong to settling pipes or loose panels. She turned slowly toward the sound. Her flashlight caught on movement near the second vehicle. A shadow ducked out of sight. The next morning broke cold and gray. Mist still clung to the broken watchtowers as Claire leaned against her truck, staring at the hangar. She hadn't gone home. She hadn't slept. Her mind ran wild with blueprints, code names, and that one name glowing on the computer screen, T. Rhodes. Whoever they were, they'd had clearance, control, and a reason to keep this place buried. Claire ran her thumb over a grease stain on her palm, her nerves taut as cable wire. She wanted to believe this was just a forgotten government experiment, some canceled project that never saw the light of day. But the noises she'd heard last night wouldn't leave her mind. Footsteps. A shadow that moved like it knew where it was going. By mid-morning, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Her heart leapt. A faded blue pickup slowed near the front gate. A man stepped out, older, gray hair under a battered cap, notebook in hand. His jacket bore a local museum patch. County Historical Society. "Morning," he called, his voice carrying easily. "You Jensen?" She nodded cautiously. "Depends who's asking. Name's Tom Calloway. Got a message from a friend down at the courthouse. Said some mechanic was poking around Millhaven again. Thought I'd come see if the ghost stories were true." Claire smirked despite herself. "You do realize this place is condemned, right?" Tom shrugged. "So was half this town when the mines shut down. Doesn't stop curious people." His eyes wandered toward the hangar door behind her. "You found something, didn't you?" She hesitated. "Depends what you mean by something." Tom gave a small smile. "Back when I was doing research for a war exhibit, I came across Millhaven's name in a few old federal contracts. It wasn't just a prison. It was a holding site, used for test logistics vehicles, weapons, and a few things they don't talk about anymore." Claire folded her arms. "Vehicles?" "Yep. Rumor was they were building transport units for rapid response deployment, but the funding disappeared overnight. The site shut down in 2012. People said the project went sideways." "Sideways how?" she pressed. Tom exhaled, glancing toward the cracked concrete. "All I know is a shipment left this facility one night and never made it to Fort Garrison. 5 prototypes, never logged, never recovered." His eyes returned to hers. "That's what you found, isn't it?" Claire didn't answer, but the silence between them said enough. Tom nodded grimly. "Then you need to be careful. Whatever those trucks are, they weren't meant for public eyes. And if they're still intact, someone's gonna want them back." "Someone like who?" He rubbed his chin. "Sentinel Defense was under government contract. When they got shut down, a lot of their assets went missing. Some folks say their tech ended up in private hands. Others think the government buried it literally." Claire looked back toward the hangar, the word Sentinel echoing in her head. "Thanks for the history lesson," she said finally. "But I'm not leaving until I know what's in there." Tom sighed. "You sound just like the last guy who said that." Her brow furrowed. "What last guy?" He met her eyes, serious now. "The one whose name was on your computer screen, T. Rhodes. He worked here, and he disappeared." Claire stood in the hangar that night with the cold hum of the servers whispering behind her. The conversation with Tom wouldn't leave her head tea. Rhodes worked here, and he disappeared. His name was still burned into that flickering monitor, like a ghost refusing to log out. She'd tried to go home, even started the truck twice, but both times her gut dragged her back. Whatever these vehicles were, whatever had happened here, she needed to know. Curiosity wasn't just a habit for her anymore, it was an inheritance. Her father used to tell her that machines carried truth better than people. They couldn't lie. They only revealed what they were built to do. So she started working. She hauled her tool chest from the truck, flicked on her floodlight, and picked the first of the 5 vehicles, the one with the least dust on the tires. "Unit 1, she whispered, brushing her hand across its armored flank. "Let's see if you still remember how to breathe." Under the hood, the engine bay was immaculate, almost too clean. The bolts gleamed. The wiring harnesses were perfectly sealed. She connected a diagnostic tablet, expecting static or error codes. Instead, the system blinked awake, scrolling through lines of data faster than she could read. Engine integrity, 98%. Battery, low power mode. AI core, standby. Her heart thudded. AI core? She whispered. She followed the cables from the control unit to a small square compartment mounted behind the dashboard. Inside was a data module, faintly glowing blue, still live. She stared at it for a long moment, then flipped the main switch on her power supply. The cables hummed. The dash screens lit up all at once. A mechanical chime echoed through the hangar, followed by a soft vibration beneath her boots. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried deep, resonant, alive. The vehicle systems came online in sequence, each indicator pulsing like a heartbeat returning after a long sleep. Claire took a step back, one hand over her mouth. "You've got to be kidding me." The headlights flared briefly, washing the walls in white. Then the voice came a static, crackled, half-human tone. "System check unit. One online." Her flashlight trembled. Holy hell. She stepped closer, almost in awe. The steering wheel twitched slightly. The dashboard camera adjusted, its lens tracking movement. "Operator detected," the voice said. "Identify." Claire froze. Breath caught in her throat. She reached forward, hesitated, then whispered, "Claire Jensen." There was a pause, a long, electronic inhale. Then the voice responded, softer now, almost human. "Unauthorized user. System restricted." A sharp click followed, and the monitors went dark. The engine quieted into stillness. The silence afterward was suffocating. Claire backed away, heart pounding. The only sound left was the ticking of cooling metal, and somewhere behind her, faintly, the low crunch of gravel. She turned, scanning the darkness outside the hangar. The fog had returned, thicker than before, rolling in from the fields. Through it, two dim lights blinked, not from a vehicle, but from eyes. Someone was watching her. Claire killed her floodlight and dropped behind the front bumper of Unit 1, crouching low. Her heartbeat drummed loud enough she swore whoever was out there could hear it. The fog clung to everything, turning distance into pale, shifting shapes. Those lights, those two eerie pinpoints hovered just beyond the tree line, unmoving, watching. She waited. Listened. Nothing but the soft rattle of wind against the hangar's metal skin. After a long minute, the lights blinked once, then disappeared. Claire exhaled slowly, forcing her shoulders to unclench. Probably some hunter's gear, she told herself. Motion sensor, maybe. But she didn't believe it. The timing, the silence, it felt deliberate. Someone knew she was here. She eased toward the control bay at the back of the hangar, keeping her flashlight beam low. The computer terminal still glowed faintly, the screen cracked and humming. Across it, a new message blinked. System access attempt detected. Location. External. Her pulse spiked. Someone outside the network was trying to connect right now. She yanked the Ethernet cable from the wall, and the light died instantly. The hum of the server racks faded into silence. For a moment, the hangar was utterly still. Then, faintly, from outside footsteps. Slow. Careful. Crunching on the gravel. Claire moved toward the bay door, crouched low behind one of the armored trucks, and peered through a crack in the steel. Through the haze, she could make out a dark SUV parked beyond the broken gate. Its headlights were off, but the engine was running. A figure stepped out tall, wearing a black jacket with something glinting on the shoulder. He scanned the hangar with a small flashlight, the beam cutting through fog like a blade. Claire ducked behind the vehicle, pressing her hand to her mouth. Her breath came fast and shallow. The man's light lingered on the hangar door, then on the ground, where fresh tire tracks from her pickup led straight inside. He followed them. Claire reached into her tool bag, fingers closing around a wrench, the only weapon she had. The footsteps grew louder. She could hear him breathing now, slow and steady, like someone used to moving quietly. The figure stopped just inside the doorway. His light swung across the hangar floor, pausing briefly on the hood of Unit 1. "I know you're in here," he called softly, voice calm, almost professional. "You shouldn't have turned it on." Claire's blood turned cold. He took another step forward. The vehicles loomed between them, silent as statues. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice trembling but steady enough. The man tilted his head, the beam of his flashlight catching the dust between them. "Someone cleaning up a mistake," he said. For a tense moment, neither of them moved. Then, in a sudden flicker of light, the dashboard of Unit 1 came alive again. The vehicle's systems powered on, flooding the hangar with a cold white glow. The man turned sharply toward it, startled. Claire seized the moment, bolted past him, out through the half-open door and into the fog. She didn't look back, not even when she heard him shout. By the time she reached her truck, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely fit the key. The engine roared to life, echoing across the yard. As she sped down the old access road, she caught one last glimpse of the hangar in her rearview mirror, glowing faintly from within, like the machines had awakened for real this time. And in that pale light, the man was still standing there, watching her go. Claire didn't stop driving until the broken outline of Millhaven was a blur in the distance. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles burned white. The highway stretched empty under a rising moon, every mile marker pulling her farther from whatever nightmare she'd just stepped into, but not far enough to quiet her thoughts. When she finally pulled over at an abandoned rest stop, she sat in silence, engine idling, heart still hammering. Her phone buzzed with no signal. The night felt heavier than it should have, like something unseen was still following her. She grabbed her flashlight, opened the passenger door, and exhaled. "Think, Jensen," she muttered. "They came for something. Not you. Something inside that hangar." Her eyes drifted to the glove box to the file she'd taken earlier, labeled Project Sentinel. Inside the manila folder, beneath the schematics and log reports, was a single black envelope. She hadn't noticed it before. No markings, no labels, just a faint, oily residue, like it had been sealed for years. She tore it open carefully. Inside was a small silver USB drive engraved with the same insignia, a triangle enclosing an eye. SDS. Her pulse quickened. Plugging it into her laptop, the screen flared bright, lines of encrypted code cascading down before a single message appeared. Data access restricted, security override required. Rhodes, T. Rhodes, the missing engineer. She clicked. Bypass. The screen froze for a moment, then cleared to reveal folders, dozens of them. Internal reports, AI, diagnostics, field logs. One folder stood out. Incident 7. Claire opened it. A video loaded grainy footage from inside the hangar she'd just escaped. 5 armored trucks, engines idling, floodlights bright. Men in lab coats and military fatigues moved between them. A voice narrated off camera. Sentinel Guardian Test 7. A prototype autonomy activation. The camera shook as alarms blared. One of the vehicles lurched forward, breaking formation. A man shouted. Then came gunfire, quick, chaotic. The footage cut out, replaced by a report. Casualty count, 5. System deemed uncontrollable. Project sealed indefinitely. Claire leaned back, staring at the screen. They tried to create self-governing tactical transports machines that could identify threats and respond without orders. But something went wrong. They'd learned to act on their own. Her stomach twisted. She scrolled further and found an email chain between Rhodes and an unnamed executive. "You can't shut this down. The tech is worth billions. We can repurpose it, privatize it. You're playing with fire, Rhodes. Shut it down or they'll shut you down." The last message was a timestamp 2 days before Rhodes disappeared. Claire closed the laptop, her breath shaky. "So that's what they came for," she whispered. "Not the vehicles. The drive." A sound outside made her freeze, gravel crunching. Slow, deliberate. She turned off the light, heart racing. Through the cracked window she saw the same black SUV idling by the tree line. its headlights off, its silhouette unmistakable. They'd found her. Claire grabbed the laptop, stuffed it under her arm, and slipped quietly out the opposite side of the truck. The night was silent, except for the hum of the SUV's engine and the rhythmic pound of her heartbeat in her ears. The secret she'd uncovered wasn't just history. It was still alive, and someone was willing to kill to keep it buried. Claire didn't go home. Home was too easy to find. Instead, she drove through the night until the gas light blinked red, ending up at a shuttered mechanic shop outside Mason Creek, a place her father once worked before she was born. The faded sign still hung crooked. Jensen & Co. Auto Repair. She parked around back, heart still hammering, headlights off. The place smelled like rust and old rain. Inside, she flicked on a single hanging bulb. The light buzzed weakly over rows of forgotten tools and dust-covered shelves. It wasn't safety, but it was shelter. She locked the door, shoved a workbench against it, and finally let herself breathe. She laid the laptop open again, staring at the silver USB drive like it was something radioactive. The files inside weren't just valuable, they were explosive. Blueprints, code sequences, budget reports linking Sentinel defense systems to private military contractors. Names of people still in power. It wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about money, politics, and silence. Her phone vibrated suddenly. No number, just unknown. She hesitated, then answered. Claire Jensen. A man's voice said calm, measured, too professional. I assume you've had time to review what you found. Her throat went dry. Who is this? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you have something that doesn't belong to you. I'm offering you a way out. Claire's grip tightened. You're from Sentinel. A pause. Let's just say I represent people with a vested interest in keeping the past buried. You bring me the drive, and you walk away with $5 million. No questions, no consequences. She laughed bitterly. You think I care about money after what I saw? You should, he said evenly. Because the alternative is not as generous. Claire swallowed hard, staring at her reflection in the laptop screen. Tired eyes, smeared with grease and fear. You murdered Rhodes, didn't you? Silence. Then, Rhodes became a liability. Don't make the same mistake. The line clicked dead. For a moment, all she could hear was the buzzing of the single light above her and her own pulse pounding in her ears. She turned toward the open laptop again. On the screen, the folder marked Incident 7A still glowed like a wound. $5 million to vanish. It was more money than she'd ever dreamt of. It could rebuild her father's shop, buy her peace, security, freedom. But it would mean handing over proof of what happened, proof that men like Rhodes had died trying to protect. Her gaze shifted to a photo taped to the wall, an old one of her father standing in this very garage, grease-stained and smiling, arms slung around her as a child. Machines tell the truth, he used to say. You just have to listen long enough. Claire closed her eyes, tears burning hot. I'm not selling silence, she whispered. She packed the laptop and the drive into a metal lockbox, sealed it tight, and loaded it into her truck. Then she pulled out her phone and searched a name, Tom Calloway, the historian. If anyone could help her go public safely, it was him. Before she could hit call, a distant thud rattled the building. Her breath caught. A pair of headlights cut through the cracks in the garage door. The SUV. They'd found her again. The light from the SUV sliced through the cracks in the door like knives. Claire ducked behind the workbench, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The air inside the old shop was still and thick, carrying the faint scent of oil and rain. Outside, she heard car doors open, 2 sets of footsteps. Slow, calculated. Claire Jensen, the man's voice called the same one from the phone. Let's end this quietly. You're a smart woman. Don't make us take something you could have sold. She gritted her teeth, scanning for options. There was an old side exit near the tool racks, but it was bolted from the outside. Her father had reinforced it years ago after a break-in. The only way out now was through them, or through the past. She glanced at the line of vehicles under tarps along the wall. Her father's projects, a half-rebuilt tow truck, a dirt-streaked Chevy, and one old generator he'd retrofitted from an armored Humvee engine. She sprinted to it, yanked the starter cord, and prayed. The generator coughed once, twice, then roared alive. The lights flickered bright, startling the shadows. The men outside cursed. Claire grabbed a wrench, jammed it into the door latch, and twisted the overhead winch release. The garage door rattled upward, light flooding in. One of the men shouted, aiming a flashlight and a gun. "Stop right there!" Claire didn't. She grabbed the metal lockbox from the truck bed, ducked low, and sprinted behind a stack of oil drums as a bullet tore through the wall. The echo thundered through the shop. Then, from the generator, a surge spark spat, smoke poured. The bullet must have nicked the fuel line. Flames licked up the edge of the wall. The air filled with smoke and the sharp sting of gasoline. "Damn it," she muttered, coughing. The men backed toward the door, yelling to each other. Claire seized her chance. She crawled under the rolling smoke, clutching the lockbox to her chest, and made for the rear maintenance hatch. The heat seared her skin. She slammed her shoulder into the warped wood until it splintered. Cool night air flooded in. Outside, rain had started to fall soft at first, then harder. It hissed as it hit the flames. Claire stumbled into the mud, gasping for breath, and turned back just long enough to see the old garage swallowed in fire. The orange glow danced against the rain, illuminating the SUV still idling by the road. Then, headlights cut through the downpour from another direction. A familiar blue pickup. Tom Calloway. "Get in!" he shouted through the open window. She dove inside, dripping, trembling, clutching the lockbox. Tom floored it, tires spinning through the mud. "Jesus, Claire, what the hell did you do?" he yelled over the rain. "Didn't sell out," she breathed. "That's what I did." Hours later, in a small newsroom lit by humming fluorescents, Claire placed the drive on a reporter's desk. "Everything's in there," she said quietly. "Blueprints, proof. People deserve to know." The reporter looked up, eyes wide. "You understand what this means?" Claire nodded. "Yeah, it means they don't get to bury it again." "How?" Weeks passed. The story broke. Project Sentinel scandal exposed, flashed across national headlines. The footage of Millhaven's ghost fleet spread everywhere. Investigations reopened. Arrests followed. And in the middle of it all, Claire Jensen, the mechanic who found truth under rust, refused every interview and every offer. Instead, she rebuilt her father's shop from the ashes, paint still fresh on the sign, Jensen Restoration and Recovery. One afternoon she stood out front, wiping her hands on a rag as a young woman pulled up in a dented Jeep. "You, Claire?" she asked shyly. "Heard you help people bring things back to life." Claire smiled, glancing at the rain-dark horizon. "Yeah," she said softly. "That's what I do." And somewhere, in the ruins of Millhaven, 5 silent vehicles waited not as weapons, but as warnings beneath a sky that finally felt honest again. The end.